How is it going, everyone? It's K-Lumit here, and today we're going to be talking about another Pokemon game. We're going to be talking about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I played through Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. It took me about 25 hours, I'd say, to play through the main story, and I did enjoy my time with it, and I think that this is a really good Pokemon game, especially for people who are wanting to get into the series for the first time. Like, if you're wanting to introduce this, the Pokemon franchise to kids or something, I feel like this would be a perfect game to start them off with, because it's not very difficult, and it's mainly a collectathon. Like, the main point of this game really is collecting the Pokemon. And, like, that sounds like the main point of every game, but it's just even more, put to the forefront of this game because of the fact that there's not really a battle system for most of the Pokemon that you run into. Whenever you run into a Pokemon in this game, instead of going to a fight system, it actually immediately goes into a catch system instead. Kind of like what you see on the Pokemon Go phone game. You are basically just trying to throw a Pokeball and catch the Pokemon as soon as you see it, and that is the main goal of this game whenever you run into Pokemon. Now, there's still some battles in this game, but the battles are always against the human NPCs for the most part. So, whenever you run into a human NPC, they'll challenge you to a Pokemon battle, but when you run across a wild Pokemon, you don't have to worry about a battle, you just catch it immediately. And that's basically how this game works. So it's really simple, it's really dumbed down, I would say, but it is a really fun game still. And like I said, I think that this would be a great game for beginners for the Pokemon franchise. The fun thing about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu is also that it's actually basically a remake. It is a remake of the original Pokemon Yellow. So I think that's actually pretty cool. So I never got a chance to play the old Pokemon game, the original one, so to be able to play it in this form, it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool to actually play it and get these nice graphics with it because it does look really good. The graphics of this game look great. And I also get to see the original Pokemon. The original 151 Pokemon are in this game. And that's really cool to see because there's some really cool ones. I think the original 151 are probably the best designed Pokemon. They definitely had some good ones afterwards, don't get me wrong. I'm not like a hater of the new stuff, but the original 151 just had like the perfect design before they started going all crazy with things like Chandelier and like this weird like house items becoming Pokemon. So I do definitely like the Pokemon that are in this game. There's a lot of good ones, and the actual gameplay itself is really fun. It plays very smooth. Graphically, it's very pretty, and everything just looks great and runs great as well. One thing that I have to mention, and I have to bring up, is the cutscenes in this game. The cutscenes in this game with Pikachu are absolutely adorable. I love spending time with Pikachu in this game. I love seeing the interactions between your custom-made character and Pikachu. I say custom-made character. You really actually only select a preset character, but either way, I still love the interactions between your character and the Pikachu in the cutscenes. I love that you can spend time with Pikachu, and you can actually like scratch Pikachu. You can actually like feed him berries and stuff. It's just really adorable, and I loved doing all of that stuff. So I had to mention it just because of how adorable all those cutscenes were, and just absolutely how adorable Pikachu is in this game. I had to bring it up. Also, Pikachu like sits on your shoulder through the entire game, which is again just adorable. But you also can have another Pokemon walk beside you and just like release it from its ball and it'll walk beside you and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. I thought that was actually a newer feature that the newer Pokemon games had. I didn't realize that this game actually had it as well, and it's pretty cool to be able to just have a Pokemon run around with you. And if a Pokemon is actually big enough, you can also ride on the Pokemon's back. So I was constantly using Persian and just riding around on Persian the entire time. I think that's a really cool thing to have in this game, and it just gives you more interactions with the Pokemon, which is always a good thing. Other than just catching Pokemon and battling random trainers, you do have a little bit of story mode in this one. It's a pretty basic story mode, but it doesn't really need anything too crazy. It just needs something to progress you along the game to catch higher level Pokemon. And the storyline in this is basically you are trying to become a Pokemon champion, like pretty much every Pokemon game, right? But along the way, you run into Team Rocket. You're probably familiar with Team Rocket. You've probably at least heard of the name. You've probably seen them from the anime at least, or something like that. So you are basically trying to defeat Team Rocket and at the same time trying to compete in the Pokemon League to become a Pokemon champion. And that is the whole story of this game. And along the way, you're going to go and do a lot of different gym challenges. You have a lot of gym battles. I actually like that they're not I said gym challenges, but the challenges in this aren't like the ones that I'm used to from the newer Pokemon games. They're a lot more kind of like dumbed down. They're more like just battle people or and like find switches to open doors and stuff like that. They're a lot more simple, and I actually kind of enjoy them more because a lot of the Pokemon gym challenges on the newer games just feel like they're just there to kind of like expand runtime. But these ones are pretty straightforward and to the point, so I kind of like that more actually. And one thing that I also like about this game is that when you're trying to go to different areas to get to the different like cities that have the gyms in them, a lot of times you have to go through these like dungeons, and it's just kind of different because I haven't played a Pokemon game that has really had dungeons like this before. But there's these dungeons, and you actually have to solve puzzles in the dungeons. You have to push these certain buttons. You have to push pillars and stuff, and it's really different from what I'm used to. It almost plays like a Legend of Zelda game, which is really cool to me. I don't know how the original Pokemon games were. I'm guessing that these were features that were probably in the original Pokemon game. But either way, it's cool to see for the first time. This is my first time seeing these Pokemon-style dungeons, and I actually really like them. And I think that if they did more of this in future Pokemon games, I would be 100% okay with it, I don't think it's a huge deal that they're not in newer games, but I think that wouldn't be too bad of an addition, It gives you extra stuff to do, and it gives you just more gameplay, and it's actually pretty fun. I actually like the dungeon, surprisingly. Getting through the game is pretty straightforward. If you ever get lost, you can talk to one of the NPCs, and they'll kind of like give you a hint and push you towards the right direction. The only time I ever couldn't really figure out what to do is when I just couldn't figure out how to actually start getting onto the water. And I did look up how to do that, and it just turned out that I had to go talk to someone that had a surfboard, and that was all I was missing. So the game's pretty straightforward, and honestly, it's pretty easy, and you can pretty much figure out everything you need to do by yourself. I just had a lapse in judgment and didn't see actually a lapse in eyesight and just didn't see a surfboard anywhere. But then when I finally saw it, I felt pretty dumb. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty easy to play. And it definitely has interesting ways of locking you out of certain areas until you are high enough level to go through them. And I really like the progression of this game. They do a good job with the progression of them. And I love all the different cities. And you actually have to, when you fight Team Rocket, you actually have to go into some of these cities and fight them in like towers that they've taken over and buildings they've taken over and stuff like that. And those are like their own dungeons, basically. So you actually go inside, this building that Team Rocket's taken over, and it is literally just a gigantic dungeon now. And you are going and battling Team Rocket, soldiers or Team Rocket, I guess, members. And you are trying to basically get to the boss and save the boss of the building and clear Team Rocket out of there. And I love these little Team Rocket dungeons as well. I think that was probably the most unique part of this game, honestly, is just all the different dungeons and even like Team Rocket's dungeons and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that element. Now, I do have one negative thing I have to say about this game, and it's actually a pretty big negative. They purposely lock you out of using a Pro Controller, or even just using both Joy-Cons at the same time detached from the Switch. For some reason, they really want you to use motion controls in this game. So when you play this in dock mode, you have to only use one Joy-Con. You cannot use both Joy-Cons at the same time. You cannot use a Pro Controller or anything. You can only play with one Joy-Con, and that is really annoying. I hate that they force you into playing with one Joy-Con. They literally lock you out of playing with a Pro Controller, and that is just such a stupid thing, because this game would play just fine with a Pro Controller. How do I know that would play just fine with a Pro Controller? Because you can literally play it in handheld mode with the analog stick, so there's no reason to have the motion controls. They really just kind of push the motion controls on you when you are playing in dock mode, and I do not like that. I'm glad that they didn't do that in future Pokemon titles, but I really wish they wouldn't have done it here because it is annoying. And I know why they did it as well, because they were also trying to sell this little peripheral that they had at the time. They had this little Pokemon Switch controller that was a Pokeball that they were trying to sell. I remember when they did this, and that's probably one of the reasons they tried to lock you out of using a Pro Controller, because they were probably trying to sell this other stupid accessory instead. But it is annoying, and I hate that they lock you out of playing with a regular controller. That is a huge mistake. So I will say, if you play this game, I think that is 100 times better playing it in handheld mode. That way you don't have to use the motion controls. The motion controls aren't terrible, but having to use just one Joy-Con and having all the controls on one Joy-Con isn't great. Having to hold one Joy-Con in your hand and having to use it for the motion, having to use it for all, accepting certain things, it's just not very comfortable, and it's not a very fun experience. So playing it in handheld mode was definitely my preferred way of playing this game. Now, Does that completely ruin the game? No. The game is still really fun, and either way, I can still recommend this game. I just think that is a really bizarre decision for them to do. I don't understand why they ever did that, and apparently a lot of people don't talk about it. I had never heard anyone actually talk about that before, and that is a huge, that's just a huge thing for me. Like, why would you even do that, is my question, but whatever. Overall, though, the game is still really fun, and I think for newer fans, I think newer fans would really enjoy this, or if you are wanting to get your kid into Pokemon for the first time, since there's not really a whole lot of, like, Pokemon versus Pokemon battles in terms of, like, out in the wild when you find just a random Pokemon, since there's not a whole lot of battles with them, I think it works out really well for newcomers and for younger kids and stuff like that. So if you are wanting to introduce your kids to Pokemon, I think that this would actually be a really good game to use to do that. It takes away a lot of the difficulty, and I just think it gets straight to the point of what you want from a Pokemon game, which is catching Pokemon and then going and battling trainers. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button down below. I will see you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.